All right, this is going to be the walkthrough video of the study guide for your test tomorrow. I'm going to try to make this short and sweet. Most of it's pretty simple, but it will go through all of the 6 tasks that were on the water park project. So here we go. First thing, this is task 1, right? Plot and label the following ordered pairs. So I'm going to plot and label them. And I'll kind of tell you as I go what I'm doing here. So home is going to be H, mall is going to be M, store is S, restaurant is R. Home is at -3, +3 should be right there. Mall is at -1, +6, which is right there. The store is at 3, -6, located here. And the restaurant is at 1, -2, located right there. So it'd be 1 point apiece on those. The points that are on the study guide are slightly different than the test, but the test will tell you exactly where your points are coming from. So this is going to be task 1, and that's it. Number 2, it says find the given slopes, or find the slope between the given locations. So we are going to go from the home to the store. Um, so honestly, I mean, it does say you can use this. I believe tomorrow you're going to need to use the formula, which is given. They're going to be given. The test will look pretty much exactly like the study guide. So I'm going to assume that we are using this formula. Um, and so from the home to the store, I'm going to take y from the home minus the y from the store. And I'm going to take the x from the home minus the x from the store. When you do this, you're going to get 9 over -6, which will simplify to -3/2. It's going to be emphasized too during this to use improper fractions. That's what I'm going to use. That's what we did on the tasks. So that's what I expect to happen. For B, we're going to the mall, or from the mall to the restaurant. So the mall's x is 6 minus, or sorry, the mall's y is 6 minus the restaurant's y, which is -2. And then the mall's x is going to be -1 minus the restaurant's x, which is +1. 6 minus -2 is 8. -1 minus -2 is -2. -1 minus 1 is -2. So this will get me a slope of -4. So that's it. That's task 2, finding the slope between the points. Task 3, you are finding the distance between the given locations. So I'm going to kind of bounce back and forth between this question here and then up top on my graph. So we are finding first the home to the store. Again, you're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. I'm not going to mess with the distance formula. I know some folks chose to do that on the project, but we're just going to keep it simple and use the Pythagorean theorem. So we want to find the home to the store. So that would be from here to here. I know it's not completely straight. That's okay. So we've got this, and we are finding this distance right here. So in order to find your legs, your A's and B's, just count 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that leg is 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This leg is 6. So this will end up being 9 squared plus 6 squared equals c squared. 81 plus 36 equals c squared. 81 plus the 36 is 117. And then remember that we undo something being squared by taking the square root. So the square root of 117 is going to get me about, it does say round to the nearest tenth if necessary, so it's going to get me about 10.8. And I'm going to put units just because that's going to be affected or affecting task 6. All right. From the mall to the restaurant, I'm going to go here. I should go, not perfect, but it'll do. All right. 1, 2 here is that leg. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is this leg. So we will take 2 squared plus 8 squared equals c squared. It was 8, wasn't it? Yeah, 2 and 8. Okay. So this is going to be 4 plus 64 equals c squared. This is 68 equals c squared. And again, take the square root. Square root of 68 is about, when I round it, it'll be about 8.2 units. And that's half of that's half of the test right there. Okay. Going to the backside. Backside is going to be the most time consuming. This was the task 4 that y'all remember from the project. So we are going to take and take some information, put it into the different forms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write, so I don't have to keep flipping back and forth. The slope from the home to the store was -3/2. So what you're going to do is substitute in what you need to. So in point slope form, this is going to be y minus y sub 1. And then the slope, which is -3/2 times the x minus x sub 1. But remember, whatever is up here, that becomes its opposite when you put it into point slope form. So this would be x plus 3. All right. Now for my work, to take it from point slope to slope intercept, the first step you have to do is distribute. So I'm going to bring everything else down. The y minus 3, this will be -3/2 x, and then a -3/2 times a positive 3 is going to get me a -9/2. All right, so we do that. Then we add the 3 to cancel that out. And then that will get me y equals -3/2 x. And then that -9/2 plus 3 gets me -3/2. So that's how we take it from point slope to slope intercept. The last step that we have to do is take it from slope intercept into standard form. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get my x's and y's on the same side, because remember it's ax plus by equals c. So I'm going to add 3/2 x to both sides. What that is going to give me then is 3/2 x plus 1y equals -3/2. Okay, remember this is a negative here. Okay. Last thing that I have to do then is, because I have fractions, I've got to multiply by the least common denominator. So I'm going to multiply everything by 2. And when I say everything, distribute. Everything gets multiplied by that 2. That was a common mistake that I saw on the project. So when you do the distribution, and you do it well, so this is going to be 2 times 3/2 x gets me 3x. 2 times 1y gets me 2y. And 2 times -3/2 will get me a -3. All right, and that's standard form. Next one, there's a mall to restaurant, and our slope here was a -4. All right, so substitute everything in just like we did on A. This will be y minus 6 equals the slope times x plus the 1, because remember, everything becomes its opposite. Right? From there, just like we did on this, the first one, distribute. So -4 times x plus 1. This will be y minus, oh no, we are lagging. Y minus 6 equals -4x. -4 times 1 is -4. I'm going to add 6 to both sides. What happens then is these 6's will cancel, and you'll be left with y equals -4x plus 2. So that's slope intercept. And then again, the last step is going to be just like what we did on the first problem. So I'm going to add the 4x on both sides. Cannot combine the 4x and the y. So really the only thing that we are going to have is this problem being finished in standard form. So we'll have a 4x for my ax, and that's fine because that 4 is positive and it's not a fraction, plus the 1y. Again, it's not a fraction. It's okay if that's negative, but it ended up not being negative, so don't worry about it. And that's going to equal a positive 2. All right? And that's task 4. I know I did it really quickly, but the numbers are not that complicated, and the process is the same in both of them. The next task would be task 5, where we have to find the point of intersection, which means we are going to use our slope intercept equations, and we'll set them equal to each other. So to solve for x, remember, we already assume that y is the same as y, which is why we can set the other sides of those equal to each other. So my first equation that I have is the -3/2 x minus 3/2. That's going to equal the other slope-intercept form equation, which is -4x plus 2. All right, that's where I got them. You need to get your x's on one side. You're just solving for x. I mean, it's a solve for x equation. You're solving for the variable. So what I would do is I'm going to add 4x. You can also add 3/2 x, but I think if I do this, it's going to get me something that's positive. So when I take -3/2 plus the 4, I get 5/2 x. So this will be 5/2 x minus the 3/2 equals, this is gone, equals 2. From here, shouldn't have wrote this that big. Sorry if you also ran out of space. I'm going to add the 3/2 on both sides. So when I take 2 plus 3/2, I get 7/2. So what I have now is this. I've got, let's see. I have 5/2 x equals 7/2. You can either multiply by the reciprocal, or what I've been doing is I've been dividing by just that coefficient. I mean, technically the 5/2 and the x are tied together by multiplication, so we undo multiplication with division. If you kind of forget what the reciprocal is, this is the way to go. So when you take 7/2 and you divide that by 5/2, yeah, that's right. Okay, so I got x equals 7/5. So this is going to be your x value. So in our ordered pair, 7/5 will be our x value. And then you're just going to substitute that 7/5 into either one of those equations in slope-intercept form. So what I did was I used the y equals negative 4x plus 2. So y equals negative 4x plus 2. Substitute the x that we just found. And then I'm going to put all of this into a calculator. So what I'm doing is I'm taking negative 4 times 7/5, and then I'm adding 2. If you put it into a calculator correctly, what you will get straight up is just going to be negative 18/5. So that would be your y value then, is the negative 18/5. So it's at that point, that ordered pair, where these two lines, because that's what they are, they're linear functions, so they're going to form lines, but that's where these two lines would cross. It's where they would intersect. Okay. The last task is task 6, and that's kind of the one that we did the past couple of days, where you're going to take and use the proportions, that butterfly method. So what I have mine set up as is I'm going to take my units over miles. It says 1 unit equals 3 miles. So I've got 1 unit equal to 3 miles. Now this right here, because the ratio is still the same, I'm just going to copy and paste that over here. You guys can't because you're on pencils, sorry. But it's the same thing, and I just wanted to emphasize that. So then what we will have is the home to store. So you're going to have to look at task 3 for that. All right, so if I throw it back to task 3 to find that distance, the home to store distance is 10.8 units. So I'm going to put my 10.8 units in the numerator. And then the denominator is going to be, I'm just going to use m as my variable. Okay. And then you're going to do the cross products where you're going to multiply. So 1 times m is just 1m. So I'm just going to leave that as m. And then the 10.8 times 3 is 32.4. So the distance in miles is going to be 32.4. Okay. We're going to do the same thing on the mall to the restaurant. So the mall to the restaurant was 8.2 units. So we'll have 8.2 up here. We'll have the miles down here. And again, cross products. So 1 times m is m. 3 times 8.2 is 24.6. Okay. And that should be that. All right. Did that pretty quick, I know, but that's it. If you have questions, get them ready because I kind of want to get this test started as soon as we get to class tomorrow. So we'll see you tomorrow.